Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Big Bite Baits for rigging on Monday with the coach. How is everyone doing today? Brian, you doing good?
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Did you have a nice weekend?
I did.
Yeah, good. Well, we stood, there for several months. It rained every time we had the show. Now it never rains. We're on the direct opposite if you hadn't noticed that. So everything's beginning to dry up on us. But anyway, so I thought today we might talk about a new bait that we've got that somehow, I guess we just misplaced. I don't know, but before I do that, I want to cover some clothing that we've got available that we need to talk about. First thing is we've got a new hat. I really like this hat. It's a beige or tan with a brown back, with the brown patch, with the Big Bite logo on it. It's very nice. I know it's very popular. It's a Pacific brand hat. It goes for $24.99 on the internet, and we've been doing real well with those. So I highly recommend that. That's something we have in the hat line. And I think we've got one similar to this coming, but we hadn't got it yet. Another one that I'll show in future shows that's pretty nice as well. Isn't that correct?
Yes. It's in the near future, probably be a couple weeks for you.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be interesting. But this is really nice. And for you people that like the leather patch type style hat, I know it's real popular. Give this one a shot. I think you'll like it, okay? All right, the second thing I've got this day is we've got a new pullover. It's got the hood on the back of it. We actually have it in two colors. It comes in a black and a silver. Has the Big Bite logo on the front. Has the Big Bite logo on the back. Okay. This is coming soon. Okay. I think they're on the way. Is that not correct? I believe they're being shipped out now. So we should have them here in the next couple of weeks. And definitely need to check the internet, check the webpage for those. Really nice. This one I think is really nice for the fall because it's black. I know that I wouldn't want to wear this in the heat of the summer, but for you guys that like something like this in the summer, we've got a silver looking one that also has the fish on it. So you can do black or you can do silver. So you can pick your poison, so to speak. But very nice, made out of a performance type material that's kind of cool and stretchy. I really like it. I think it's going to be nice.
Yeah, it's a real nice, comfortable quality hoodie there.
Definitely. But anyway, check this out on the webpage. It'll be showing up here in the next week or so. Anyway, coming soon. That's a good way to put it.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. All right. So the big mystery for the bait today. So I decided that we put in a bait for at the beginning of the year we really hadn't even had on the show. We hadn't talked about or anything, and that's our new jerkbait. It's pretty neat. It's a shad. It represents a shad. It's a neat looking type of bait. We already made a jerk bait similar to this, but this one's a lot more soft. It's a lot more flexible. I really like it. I think it's something that we need in our line. It's a little different, and it works really well. It comes in 5 colors. It comes in your straight pearl. It comes in your pearl shine. It represents like a shad in the spring of the year, and I'm going to talk about a way to rig it in just a little bit, some ways to rig it. And then we've got like a a green pumpkin. We've got a tilapia magic in it. We've got watermelon red in it. So it comes in some of the better colors. I think it's pretty neat, something to talk about. So let's talk about rigging it now. Obviously, a lot of guys, and I don't do this, let me hide that weight, but a lot of guys will rig this weightless. And they'll fish this around like the shad spawn, and they use a twitching action to make that thing dart, make it dance, and it works real well. I don't do a whole lot of that, but I do know that's a very effective way to use it, and it works really well. Now, ways that I've seen other people rig this bait, and I don't have the bait to do it with, but they might put this on the back of a underspin, works really well there, or even use it as a spinnerbait trailer. And you can feasibly put it on the back of a chatterbait as well. So that's some ways you turn that into a trailer. And I think that works pretty well. So this leads me to a story I want to tell. I was down in Texas the other year fishing with a buddy of mine, and he says, well, we're going to have to go to a Carolina rig to catch fish. And so I was, completely novice to the lake, so I just kind of followed his lead. He pulls out Carolina rigs and hands me a pole. He takes a pole, and I said, this thing's got a jerk minnow on the end of it. He said, that's right. He says, I fished a jerk minnow on the end of my Carolina rig. Well, I almost laughed when he handed it to me. I'm going to be honest with you, I never heard of doing this at all. All right, but he did. So on the third cast, to make a long story short, I caught it 8-3. So I didn't really argue with the technique anymore. It worked out pretty good, but you can rig this thing, and believe it or not, if you haven't tried it, give it a whirl. it works pretty good on a Carolina rig, as crazy as it might be. So that's another way you might want to fish the bait. So those are some of the ways I would kind of recommend, or ideas I have in ways of presenting it to the fish for them to bite it. Brandon, you might have an idea on another way to do that. I will add, a lot of times guys that fish it without any weight on it put a swivel in their line to keep it from twisting their line up. Also, they will come down about a foot below the swivel with a leader and tie the bait. I've seen that done, and that keeps your line from getting twisted as you jerk that thing through the edge of the grass or whatever, when the shad's spawning. Something just a kind of little tip to add that you might could try as well.
Yeah, you could definitely, like you said, using it as a trailer on a spinnerbait or a chatterbait.
No
any
doubt.
of that would work. I mean,
yeah, sure.
Even if you want to get creative, a swim jig, maybe if you want just a straight.
Yeah, you could do that too. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you can be kind of come up with ways to use it for sure. But I think primarily over the years that bait has a reputation of being fished with weightless, and it works really, really well. So
I would say so.
Anyway, that's kind of where maybe I would start with it and then go from there. But don't forget to put on a Carolina rig if you're fishing out deep. You never know what might happen. So that's crazy,
Yeah, I know that's gotten the Carolina rig tactic. It seems pretty popular in those Texas lakes and stuff.
Right.
And, people I know do that.
Yeah, it was completely caught me by surprise. So I know we've probably got a few questions today. Let's talk about our questions. What we got going on, man?
All right, let's see. Fishing Hosier wants to know, what is the best hook that you like to use when you're Texas rigging a craw tube? I
like to use a wide gap hook in that craw tube, and I have a couple reasons why I like to do that. Number one, I either use a 4/0 or a 5/0. That's kind of up to the user. Okay, I like to insert a rattle in my craw tube. In the head of it, I just put it inside and squeeze it all the way up to where it stops. And that wide gap hook allows that rattle to be in between the barb and where the bend is on the hook. Thus, it doesn't really get in the way when you set the hook. Mm-hmm. And that's my thinking on using the wide gap hook. Now, I personally don't like a superline style hook. I like just a regular wire wide gap hook. That way I can because that's kind of a meaty bait and you won't be able to get a good penetration. Of course, I would skin hook that on the top, with the point of my hook out anyway. But that's kind of how I like to fish it. But then I know some guys that use like a heavier wire type hook when they do that as well. But that's my theory behind it is I put the rattle in it. I like to put a rattle in it, and that hook allows me to be able to put a rattle in it and not get in the way.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Let's see. Kind of along that lines, maybe is Z18 on the Delta was asking, what should you look for, like when you're punching mats?
Okay, Z18. Well, I'm not by any chance, any way, nor form or fashion a punching pro. I can assure you that. But and just talking to some of the guys that I've talked with over the years here working at Big Bite, they like to punch that. They punch that mat. And it's my theory on it is either looking for a certain depth of water under that mat, or they're looking for maybe some mats that have pockets in them. You might not can see that pocket, but when you pop your bait into it, there's an opening down underneath the mat, and those fish will lay right there. And when that bait comes through, it's a reaction bite, and they grab it. So that's kind of what I've been told and talked with. I actually can't shed a lot of expertise in that in my line because I haven't done a lot of that.
Well, that makes sense. Let's see. Joseph was asking, maybe this is kind of a two-part question. So the first part is, what would you say is advice for somebody who's trying to get better at fishing?
Well, I think there's several ways to do that. Number one, you can go to the internet today. The internet is amazing. You can go just like to YouTube or any of those channels, and you can find all kind of videos on fishing. You can educate yourself is what I'm getting to, just by listening and learning from other fishermen. And then the other thing I think that is the way I learned how to fish, and I think is the easiest way, is to go fishing with someone who is very knowledgeable that can teach you basically how to fish. I mean, we all have to learn some point in time. My grandfather taught me how to fish. I mean, he was a big fisherman, and I fished with him all the time. But I think in your case, Brandon, you fished with your dad growing up. If somebody in your life to teach you how to fish, I mean, the guy I fish with all the time, I taught him. So there's lots of ways to learn. I think another thing I might tell you to do is join a bass club and go as a no-boater. And then you say if the bass club's got 50 members, you got 50 teachers. You ride with them every tournament and you soak up their knowledge. Just by being, watching what's going on and talking to them and that type of thing. And I don't know many many fishermen, if you don't ask them, won't share with you. I mean, as far as techniques and tackle and that type of thing, they're not going to go tell you where they're catching their fish, but they're going to share with you how to do it for sure. So that's some of the ways I think you can educate yourself on bass fishing.
Sure. Let's see. And the second part of that is kind of some sort of like getting into the tournament side of things. So like maybe just a different strategy, or how do you feel like there's a difference in your strategy versus just going to have fun versus fishing tournaments?
Well, there's a lot of conjecture on that. I personally think, I think to be successful tournament fishing, you got to spend time on water. There's no substitute for that. You got to get out there and you've got to hunt them, and then you got to discipline yourself not to beat them up. I mean, that's the hard part. I don't know how many times in my lifetime I've pulled off a fish and left them, and knowing there was a good concentration of fish there, and you get there the next day and it might be gone. And then you're saying, well, man, I wish I had caught those. And I know that's happened probably to you too, Brandon.
Sure.
And but I think that's the key on your tournament fishing. And I know a guy that's a pretty good angler that just whacks on them every time he goes. He doesn't even worry about the fact that he's beating his fish up.
The next one we've got here is Corbin TK wants to know, what is your favorite lure for fall fishing?
Okay, Corbin, that's a good question. I think that those fish in the fall, we've discussed this a bunch. They spread out and they go to chasing shad. And so I think you have to have a bait that would cover a lot of territory, a lot of ground. I definitely would recommend, in my case, I like to use an Alabama rig, and I like to use either suicide shad or pro swimmer, and I throw that, and you can cover a lot of ground that way. And once you find those fish, then you can kind of dial in on them. And all other thing I like to use is like some other type of moving bait, maybe that's not made by Big Bite, that works pretty well too.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure you maybe are using maybe smaller sizes on those.
Yeah, you want to definitely try to get bites, I think. I mean, if you can throw a big 5-inch out there, I might get a bite, but I downsize a little bit, trying just to find the fish. I think the key is finding the fish. Once you find them, then you can catch them.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, I think you could also maybe use some of those baits on like a trailer for a spinnerbait or something like that.
Or chatterbait, or and I think we mentioned the other day, even like a suicide buzz or something along those lines, I think would be good, definitely.
Sure. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's like the last question we've got for today. So.
Okay, well, just winding things up, I just want to make sure you remember, if you hadn't tried it, try the jerkbait. I think it's something new that's really good. It's got lots of action, lots of flexibility. It's a real soft body type bait. Definitely get you one of those, and we'll look forward to talking to everybody next.